Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse today. Another XCP-NG. Another video in the series about XCP-NG. So, yeah, let's get it started right now. Now, today's video is all about getting Xen Orchestra, the community edition, mind you, set up and running on our two XCP servers, and how we then join those servers into that Xen Orchestra. It's very similar to VMware's vCenter. It's just an open source version of it. Now, there is a paid version of Xen Orchestra. We're not going to be dealing with that today. We're going to actually compile from source. So there's going to be quite a few steps involved in getting this up and running. I'll document it as clearly as I can in the video, and then afterwards we'll put it down in the notes. I'll send you a link. There's a combination of some software you'll need to download. There's a GitHub repository you'll have to go download the script from, and then once you do that, it's trivial to get it set up. So let's have a little less talk and a little more action, as they say, and get the video started right now. So we're inside of XCP-NG Center. Pardon me. And as you can see, I've got both of my servers up and running. I've got the Dell, low-powered Dell, which is not low-powered anymore. It's actually the one that I upgraded the CPUs on. And then I have the other Dell, which also has some high-end CPUs, or power-sucking CPUs, as I like to call them, the X5670s. Now, it's interesting, my first video on XCP got a lot of attention, and I appreciate it. And on this second video in the series, today we're going to talk about shared storage. We're going to talk about local storage. We're going to talk about creating a link to an ISO folder. And then what we're going to do is install, we're going to create a virtual machine to install Xen Orchestra on. So that sounds like something you'd be interested in. Stick around for the rest of the video. Now, the next thing we need to do is get our storage repository set up. So I'm only going to do it on one of the servers because I'm not quite sure if Xen Orchestra will allow me to share those resources among servers. I believe it will. So I'm only going to do this on my primary XCP-NG server, which is the Dell 710 that we upgraded the CPUs in. So the first thing we need to do is set up an ISO share. So you're either going to need to set up an NFS or SMB share on your Synology or your Windows machine or your NAS, whatever you're using. You need to know how to set up a share. And what you have to use a shared folder for the ISO files, unless you're going to boot off of something like a Windows deployment server, something like that. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to go out and I've already created an ISO share, but I'm going to show you how to connect it to your XCP-NG. So basically on your primary server, we're going to come out here under storage. We're going to do a new storage repository. And we're going to do an ISO library, Windows file sharing. So we'll call this ISO share. How's that sound? It's a hell of a name. Now, you need to know the fully qualified domain name or the IP address of the server you're going to connect to. And it gives you an example right here of how to enter that fully qualified domain name. So / and then the name of the server, or in my case, the IP address, and then another / and the name of the share. Now, since I'll be connecting to a domain controller, I need to also enter my domain name and a user with a domain that has the permissions to log into that server and to access that share. Then enter your super secret password down here. Click on Finish. And hopefully, if all is correct, you'll see the ISO share there. If we come here to the ISO share and go to storage, you'll see that I've already got some ISO files under here. And so that's good. So now the next thing we want to do is if we just use local storage, you'll see here we're going to quickly run out of space. Let's see, what's the status on it? We'll go back up here. You'll see we're quickly going to run out of space. We've only got 191 gig free. And once we start creating virtual machines, it's going to fill up rather quickly. And the whole idea behind this is a Windows, we're going to be running lab units on here, lab machines, I should say. So we want to take advantage of shared storage. I have an NFS share set up on my Synology NAS, so that's what we're going to set up next. So what we're going to do is come here to storage, do a new storage repository, and this time we're going to do file-based storage, but we're going to do NFS. I just find that NFS shares work really, really well with things like VMware and XCP-NG. We could also do an SMB, but I just prefer to use NFS. It's pretty simple and straightforward. I've shown you how to create an NFS share on my Synology NAS, so if you haven't seen that, go back to my channel and do a search for Synology and NFS and see what comes up. I can't remember the video off the top of my head. We're going to click on next, and we'll call this this is on the FS 1018, so I'll call it FS 1018 SSD Store. That's an original name, isn't it? Click on next. Now, in order to connect with this, the same way as we did with SMB, but a little different syntax. So we're going to enter the IP of our server here, which in my case is 17, and then a colon, and then a /, and then the name of the share. In my case, it's volume 1, and I think it's volume 1 NFS lab-ESXi. I'm not going to change anything else. It's at NFS version 3. Hopefully, if I've done this correctly, if I click on finish, bing, bang, boom. Now, you'll also notice that it has put a black check mark next to it, and that means this is my default storage repository. So that was easy. We just created an ISO share. We created a shared storage for our virtual machines, and I guess the next thing to do is create a virtual machine, huh? All right, so let's talk briefly about Xen Orchestra, because there's a lot of confusion on this program when it comes to XCP. There's Xen Orchestra, which is a paid supported web GUI for XCP-NG. It is separate from XCP-NG, and it's not free. Well, it is free. A lot of people get this free version confused with the community edition. So the community edition has got pretty much all of the stuff that that Xen Orchestra, what, for lack of a better word, the non-community version or the paid version. The community version has all the features of the paid version. Really what you're paying for with Xen Orchestra, when you're paying for it per se, is their support. And as you can see, even the starter pack is $77 a month. So keep that in mind. Now, the operating system I'm going to install Xen Orchestra on is Debian Linux. I prefer it over Ubuntu's installer because it's just so much more clean and easy to use. It's got a nice graphical interface, that kind of thing. So if you want to use Ubuntu and you're happy with it, go for it, do it. There are guides out there. And basically, once you get the virtual machine installed for the operating system, you're golden. Make a snapshot of it or something so you have it for the future. But, Ubuntu and Debian, the only difference is the installers on them. I like the graphical installer on Debian, so that's what we're going to use. I'm not a big fan of the Debian installer. So that being said, what we need to do is, and you are going to need XCP-NG Center in order to set up your first VM. And then after we get the Xen Orchestra on its feet, we can use that to then set up things like shared storage and virtual machines, and it gives us a lot more features and functionality, which you will see as we move forward. So all I'm going to do is come up here and create a new VM. And the really nice thing I like about XCP is the interface is really polished. It's not like Proxmox, which you gotta, some people find the Proxmox interface appealing even on the setup. I'm not one of those people. So I'm going to do Debian 10, which is Buster. So I'm just going to choose Debian Buster 10, click on next, and I'm just going to call it Debian 10. Okay. I'm going to click on next, and we're going to install from the Debian 10.11. And you notice now that I have my ISO library available. Yay, that's good. So we're going to install from the ISO. We're going to do this in BIOS mode just to make our lives kind of easy. Next, where are we going to put it? Which server are we going to do? Well, I'm only going to place it on this primary server up here for now. Next. And I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 CPUs. One socket with 4 cores. And I'm going to give it 4 gig of RAM. I got lots of RAM on this server, so there's no reason I can't spare some of it for Xen Orchestra. Click on next. No GPU to share. Click on next. Now, where am I going to store this? And you see now that I have the FS1018 SSD. Now, I could click here and choose the local storage, but I'm not going to do. Well, should I do that? I wonder if I should. I'm going to put it on local storage. What do you think? Should I? You dare me? You double dog dare me? I'm going to do a 30 gig disk. And I'm going to do it on local storage because I don't want to have to depend on my shared storage to be up to bring up Xen Orchestra. I can spare 30 gig on that SSD, and that way it'll be fast as well. So that's why I'm installing on local storage. Click on next. Okay, we're only going to use Gigabit 1 as my Ethernet adapter. And we need to come back here in a minute once I create the virtual machine, and we're going to talk about how I have things labeled because it's a part I skipped a minute ago. So I'm going to use auto-generated MAC. It's just I'm basically telling it to use the network adapter called Gigabit 1-1. Click on next, and I'm going to take the check mark off on start the new VM automatically. And I'm going to go ahead and create now. And then you'll get notifications down here with a progress bar. And then you can also come in here under your notifications. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss all mine. But basically, you see here where it created our virtual machine Debian 10. All right, it was successfully created. I've got some other errors down here because I've been playing around with things. But there you go. Now our Debian 10 virtual machine has been created. Now, one of the things I forgot to talk about is actually doing the base configuration. So before we spin up our Debian 10 machine and start installing it, let's go over some of the settings here that you need to be aware of. Under networking, now I have a unique situation where my Dell R710 has a bunch of NICs in it. It has a 4-port gigabit NIC card in there and a 10 gig Mellanox. So one of the really nice things I like about XCP is it allows you to rename those interfaces. So you're not, just like Windows does, so you're not stuck with some cryptic, what the hell does this mean? What Ethernet adapter is this referring to? It still calls it NIC 0 through 4, but it allows you to give it a common name so that you can figure out what the hell you're dealing with. The other nice thing this interface does is it shows you whether the link status is connected or disconnected, and it gives you the MAC address and the MTU right here on the side. So it's very, very simple. You just come here to properties and you give it a common name. Now, the other thing you need to be aware of is once you name this thing, if you come here to network settings, you have a little checkbox here to automatically add this network to new virtual machines. I'm going to cancel here. So what I've done, though, just so you know, so gigabit 1.1 is my primary connection to this machine. But I also have a 10 gig connection here as well. So if you don't manually go through and go to properties and come here and take this check mark off, it's going to add every one of these NIC cards, gigabit 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, and gigabit 10 to every virtual machine you create. So keep that in mind. You do need to manually come down here to properties, go to network settings, and make sure you click off the tick box there. Now, I've also created VLAN 20 because I got ahead of myself. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to remove something like that. Boom, okay? So now I've labeled all my network adapters so they're clean and understandable, and you can see they all belong together because they've got basically the same MAC address, except for the Mellanox down here. So I could even call this Mellanox if I wanted to. Now, and then we won't worry about our IP address configuration. This is what we created when we initially installed XCP, so it's fine. But there's also another tab called NICs, okay? And this is where it can get a little confusing. So if you click on NICs, now you'll get to see a little more information, like who the vendor of the card is, what the speed of the card is, what the device name is of the device, and looky there, the PCI bus path. So if you wanted to isolate one of these network cards, in theory, you could do that. You could also bond the network cards together, that kind of thing. So it's very important, before you start setting up your virtual machines, come out here to networking, get all your NIC cards set up if you've got multiple NIC cards, something that makes it easy for you to understand. Now on the GPU tab, I have nothing. We don't have a GPU in here. And on the USB, you can also enable pass-through on the USB in here if you need to. The other nice thing about this is it's got a console. So not only do the virtual machines have a console connection here, but the root of the server does as well. So if you need to run some commands on XCP, you can do that. Now you can still log in via SSH, which is the way a lot of people prefer to do it. And you can just do it by clicking here, open SSH, but it doesn't know where PuTTY is, so you would have to fix that. But that's built in. That's kind of cool, huh? And then you have the option to send Control-Alt-Delete on the console window, undock it, go to full screen, scale it, etc. It's pretty powerful. Go to Performance tab, and this basically tells you the CPU, memory, and network performance of the server you're on. If you're on the virtual machine, it gives you the stats of the virtual machine. And you can see we don't have any stats right now because the virtual machine is dark. So now that we've got everything set up for the VM, and we got our networking squared away, let's go ahead and get this VM installed. Hopefully the screen is big enough for y'all to see. So basically, I'm going to come over here to the Debian machine that we created, right? Let's left click over here, and I'm going to click there to start it. And there you go. There's my Debian install. I'm going to do a graphical install. I'm going to hit enter. Now, be patient, because even after you hit enter, it can take a minute for this to load, and you get very little to no indication that anything is going on the screen, so just be patient. All right, so we're going to do an English install. Now, the mouse and keyboard can be a little bit squirrely under here, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to choose English. I'm going to do continue, United States, continue, American English, continue. Then it should mount our CD-ROM drive. Now, I like a GUI. I don't care whether it's a server operating system or works. I like a GUI. So we're going to install a GUI on this version of Debian. I can hear, you hear that? The screams of Linux people out there going, you never install a GUI on a server. Pishta, bullcorn. You do whatever you want. This is Linux. We do what we want. Now, I need to give this machine a name. So I'm going to do XO-CE for Xen Orchestra Community Edition. I think it'll allow me to choose that name. Yes. Click on continue. Now the domain name is ujp.local because we are on an Active Directory domain. Click on continue. Now, you notice it skipped right over the configure network. And this is one of the reasons I'm installing a GUI on here. I'm going to put a GUI on the front end of it. Because if I go back, there's no way to configure the network. See, look, if I click on that and click on continue, if it can get a DHCP address, it considers itself configured, right? I want to manually put an IP address in there, but we can do that after we install. So let's continue on where we left off. Now I need to enter a password for the root account, right? Let's see, root password and root password. So enter your super secret password. And I'm just tabbing between the fields. Don't be an enter person. Don't hit enter on everything. And then I'm going to click on continue. Now, they want a full name for the new user, so I like Bill Adama. Continue. The login name, however, is going to be Adama, and I just use that I use the same login name for my admin accounts for both my Windows network and my other devices. It just makes it so much easier to authenticate on the network. But make sure you create a super secure password and don't share that with anybody. And then anyone that you've had to share that with, make sure you eliminate them. Click on, I'm not calling for somebody's, no, just shut up. Central time zone, continue. Then it should go out and detect your hard drive. You see why I like Debian's installer? It's just so simple. Simple. Continue. It sees the virtual disk. Continue. I'm going to do all files in one partition. Blasphemer! I can hear the Linux people screaming at me from behind the monitor. Okay, for finish partitioning, write changes to disk. Continue. Yes. Continue. And now we'll get to do a little, once it installs the base system, we'll get to do a little customization. And that's where we can install a GUI. Now, I'm going to install a couple simple GUIs. I'm not going to use something like, I don't know, like GNOME or anything like that. That's way too heavy for what we need. Okay, if we wish to enter another CD, we can enter it now. I'm going to tell it no. I'm going to do continue. So it's United States. Debian.org is fine. We'll choose that for the repository. Click on continue. All right. No, we're not going to do the popularity contest. I don't even know what the hell it is. Couldn't care less. Okay, so we are going to install a Debian desktop environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do XFCE and Mate. We don't need a print server. We do need an SSH server. And I'm going to leave the standard system utilities so that I get everything I need on there. Click on continue. And we'll let it install. Now this process will take some time. So we're at the end of our installation. And it tells you, it seems that this new installation is the only operating system on this computer. If so, it should be safe to install the grub bootloader. So we're going to tell it yes to install the grub bootloader, continue. However, we're going to select the device XVDA just to make sure. And we're going to click on continue. Now, there it goes. And we should be done. So it says it is now time to boot into your new system. Make sure you remove the installation media so that you boot into the new system rather than restarting the installation. So we're going to go ahead and click on continue. And then we're going to quickly eject the DVD. And hopefully it'll reboot and boot into Debian. Isn't that a nice, clean installer for Linux? Wasn't that simple? It's so simple even a moron like myself could figure it out. All right, so now let's see if it boots, and then let's see if we can log in. Now, what I want to do, I just want to boot and then see if I can log in. Oh my, that was quick. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with Adama and my super secret password. And this is a very light GUI that I put on top of this operating system. So log in and bam, there you go, man. Nice. So I've got a bunch of applications and system controls. I can go into preferences. Look, internet and network, advanced network configuration. Oh my goodness. Say it ain't so. I don't have to edit a damn network file. Cool. But before we do that, now that we know it's working, let's see if we can actually shut this bad boy down. Okay, it looks like that worked as well. And can we make a copy of it? Let's see what our options are. Let's come over here to Debian and right click. So we have an option to copy it, to export it, and that's about it. So let's, if we copy it, what options do we have here? So let's copy. Oh, within pool, make a copy in the same pool, cross pool, make it into a different. So if we do next, copy of Debian 10, let's see, do to cross pool. And then I can select the other server. Okay, so that's how that works. What I probably want to do then is take a snapshot, right? What do you think? Should I take a snapshot? Okay. Yeah, let's take a snapshot. What the hell? Let's do after install. Okay. And take a snapshot. All right. So I probably don't want to mess with this anymore then, right? What I probably want to do is export it and then create my new Debian machine and play with that one. So let's export this so we have a copy of it. So we'll right click and let's do an export. Now it's telling me it's going to call it Debian 10 and it's going to do C users JStruct. No, that's not where I want it. So I want to browse, and I've created a place on my network drive to, let's see, called Xen or XCP exports. We'll choose that. It's going to put it into a format OVF OVA. Okay, next. We're going to do Debian 10 and its disk. Next. No EULA files. Wow, I do have the ability to create an OVA package, single OVA. You know what? Let's not tempt fate, okay? Let's just leave it at the defaults. It's going to use those network settings that are already in there. Next. And then do I want to verify the export on completion? That's probably going to take some time, folks. I'm going to go ahead and tell it yes. What the hell? Oh, wow. 5 hours per terabyte. I think we'll pass on that. Well, that's 5 hours per terabyte. So, no, I'm not going to tempt fate. Okay, let's click on finish. And then you'll see now it says connecting virtual disk. You'll see a little progress bar down here. Well, you don't see the progress bar because my big head is in the way. There's the progress bar. And if you come here to notifications, you can get in your events. You click on the down arrow. It'll tell you what it's doing. Okay? So we're going to let this run. Have some faith that it's going to work. And we'll come back when something changes. All right, so I'm back from lunch. And yeah, it looks like we may have had some success. It said export package, and we got a green check mark. It took 7 minutes and 48 seconds, it says. All right, so here I am on my Synology NAS of the XCP exports folder. And you see I've got some XVA, other XVA and PVA files out here. But anyway, there's the Debian 10, and there is the virtual hard drive. And there is the OVF file, the Open Virtualization file. So yeah, it took about 8 minutes to export that machine. That's 6 gig in size. That's not too bad. Not to be sneezed at. It's nice to know that works. We'll come back and we'll cover these machines later because I've now exported in a couple of different formats, just doing some experiments. So I got a couple of choices. I could delete this machine and try to re-import, or I can just rename this machine and continue on. All right, so first things first, let's see if we can right-click and we can rename that machine. I don't see a rename, but I see a properties. Oh, there it is. So let's call this Xen Orchestra. There's an O in orchestra, not an E. Dash CE. Xen Orchestra. We'll even type it here. Xen Orchestra. Oh, shoot, I forgot to capitalize the U. Orchestra. Community. No, 2 M's. I never said I could spell. Okay. And while we're out here, let's just look around and make sure everything's right. 4 virtual CPUs. Boot option, no high availability, no GPU, no USB, and optimized for general use. Okay, so let's tell it okay. And there we go, it's an Orchestra CE. So let's go ahead, we know it'll boot. Let's go ahead and let's start it up. Because the next thing I want to do is I want to change the IP address that this machine is going to use. I have a specific IP in mind, and I find it easiest to do that. That's why we installed the GUI, is at the GUI. For you command line people out there, I tip my hat to you. I don't want to edit that file. Although Nano's not a bad editor. I like Nano. All right, so log in, enter our super secret password. And good. I'm glad to know we're wired. So let's go to system, preferences, internet network, advanced network. We're going to choose the wired Ethernet. We're going to go to IPv4 and change that to manual. And then we're going to come here to add. So we're going to enter 192.168.5.19. It'll choose the net mask for us automatically. 168.5.254 is our gateway. And then our DNS server is going to be 192.168.5.1. And we could put our search domain in there, but I'm not going to. And let's just click on save. And then close that. And then good. Now, the next thing to do is see if we can putty into this thing. So we know it's going to be 192.168.5.19. And we might as well save this as Xen Orchestra CE. So let's save it. Appearance. We want to change our font. I like the City console, and I like it at about 14. Now we've rebooted. Let's try it again. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log in as Adama. So yeah, evidently when I hit Control C, I activated some odd keyboard sequence, and that's why my keyboard was not responding, because I noticed it quit working out at the DOS prompt as well. I was like, what is going on? So I went back in and repeated the whatchamacallit, the keyboard sequence that I had screwed up, and hopefully now it'll work. Yes. I'm a moron sometimes. Well, let's just face it, I'm a moron most of the times. Okay, so there we are. So now we're logged in. So I'm logged in as Adama, but I really need to be root for what I'm about to do. So I'm going to SU login. I'm going to switch my user to the root. And I believe this is the command that'll do it. Yep, there it is. So now I have root access. Now the next command I'm going to run is apt update. Just want to make sure that I don't have anything. Oh, need to learn how to spell. Just going to make sure. Okay, it says all packages are up to date. That's a good sign. Now, we're going to be running a script to install this. I know I've told you don't just trust random strangers out on the internet, but these folks are pretty reputable. So we need to install git apt install git. Let's see if I can remember it. Yay! So we need to have the GitHub software installed. So that's what we're doing now through SSH. And good. Now we're ready for the next step. So the next thing to do is I'm going to type in git clone, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clone or copy the repository, the script. Then I'm going to paste, and I'll put this link down in the show notes. So don't worry your pretty little heads. You'll get to see all this. Let me scratch that out. And then hit enter. So what that's going to do is it's going to go out and it's going to clone the installer, the software that we need to install. So what we need to do is run this command, which is copy sample.xo-install.cfg to xo-install.cfg, and that'll create a copy of that file right there in the same directory. So we'll hit enter, and then just to verify, we can type in ls. Let me clear the screen, and then we'll do ls so you can see a little bit clearer. So there is our xo-install.cfg file. We're going to need that later. All right, so still a little bit more work to do. Now, the next thing we need to do is create an SSL, a self-signed certificate for this system we're getting ready to install. So let's go ahead and get that done. So we're going to cd space / etc. Let's see, where are we going to go with this? And let's go into the SSL directory. And let's see if there's anything in here. Yeah, there's a couple of things. So let's make a directory, and we'll call that XO for Xen Orchestra. Let's go into that directory. There should be nothing in there. Right. And then let's enter a command, and I'll have this in the notes as well, or in the instructions down below. Let me copy it from my instructions and paste it. There you go. Hit enter, and so what it's going to do is generate a new SSL key. So we need to fill this out with information that's relevant. I'm in the US, so I'm going to enter that. I'm in Texas, enter that. And I'm just going to tell it I live in Seguin, even though I do, technically. And UJP, Frankie Joe's Playhouse. And we'll just call this lab. And common name server is going to be XO-CE, right? XO Community Edition. Enter. Email address is someone at somewhere.com. Enter, and boom. Now we have an SSL certificate. So now we need to go out and we need to update that configuration file that we created. Does that make sense? Okay. It shows you how little I know Linux. For some reason, I had to log out, log back in order to find my directory where I'm going to make all the magic happen. I got to edit the magic files. So now that I'm in that directory, this is the one where we copied the sample XO to XO install. And now we need to edit that. So I'm just going to type in the following command. And we're going to use nano to make some edits on this file. The first one we need to do is come down here and change our port from 80 to 443. We wanted to use a SSL port, or I'm sorry, a secure port. And then at the end of this file, there should be a couple of paths, and we're going to unremark those, and we need to, I'm going to copy and paste here to make my life easy. So everything after the equals is gone, and we're going to change that to where we created our SSL files. Same way with this one. I'll delete. Oop. Oop. And we'll copy this part over here. I could type it in manually, but why? Okay. So now we should be able to control X on that, save it, yes, install config, and sorry, wrong keys. Boom. So that should be registered now. So now, you know what? Let's check that file one more time. 443. I want to make sure I didn't delete anything I shouldn't have. Okay. Etsy SSL XO cert and XO key. Okay, so we should be good, because now I'm going to clear the screen, and now we're actually going to compile. We're going to run the installation script, and it's going to do some compilation. So that's another reason why I put 4 CPUs on here. Let me check OBS and make sure I'm still recording here, and I am. So here is the command to run the install, and hit enter. And so there we go. So it sees our base directory, sees our user, sees our port. Everything will be installed. And root, yep, there we go. It looks good. So we're going to do 1, hit enter, and then we're going to let this run. This could take some time. I don't exactly know how long it's going to take, because you see it's got to build some dependencies, etc. So again, we'll let this run, and when something exciting happens, I'll come back and show it to you. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to share with you what's on the screen. XO server and XO web build takes quite a while. Grab a cup of coffee and lay back. You don't know me that well. All right, well, that took an incredibly less amount of time than I thought it would. So I'm glad I gave it 4 cores and lots of RAM. And it tells me, so the web interface, it's installed, and the web UI is installed and started on port 443. Make sure you make a note of that default username and password. And so I guess the next thing to do is go log into that to that web interface and see if we actually have a functional copy of Xen Orchestra. So let's do that next. Well, I hope this is a good sign. So we're going to the IP address of 5.19. It says it's not secure. Let's go to advanced, and let's go ahead and continue. And lo and behold, there it is. There's our Xen Orchestra. Admin, and what was it? I told you to write it down, not forget it. So it's, let's see. Yeah, admin at admin.net. Okay, here we go. Admin at admin.net. And then our super secret password, which is admin. Okay, so let's log in. All right, cool. We're logged in. First thing we want to do is go over to settings and users. And we want to create a new user called Adama. And this user is going to be an admin. And he's going to have a super secretive password. We're going to create it. And then we're going to, we're probably going to log out and log back in as Adama. And then we're going to go right back to settings and users again. So a lot of people will tell you to disable this admin at admin.net account. You can do that if you want to. Delete it, I mean. And what I like to do is just simply go out there and edit the password and give it a super secret password. And boom, let's click on home. There we go. We don't have any servers or anything, but it looks like we have a successful install. So let's go back to XCP-NG here real quick, and let's just go look at our yeah, our machine is running. We're probably not going to get, well, we are getting, no, we're not getting memory data for this VM. We'll need to install the XCP-NG tools to keep track of RAM, but we'll deal with that later. But so the Xen Orchestra Community Edition is up and running. We were able to log into it. I guess what we can do now is actually add a server. So this is going to be XCP-710-LP, and the address is 7. And enter our super secret password. Now, very important, click that, otherwise it won't work. Connect. And looks like we've done it. So let's go home. Yeah, let's go to our host. Yep, there it is. 24 cores. If we click on it, we go right to stats, network. So there's all our network devices, our storage devices. Very nice. Patches, logs, and advanced. And we'll come back and talk about some. There we go. There we go. So we have to come over to advanced, come down to hardware, and then we have a list of all the hardware in it. See, it's like I said, it's like putting on a warm coat. I just love XCP-NG. It really works well. And as you can see, as we'll be learning as time, I named it wrong, Xen Orchestra. Orchestra. It's an angry orchestra. So as we go through and learn new stuff, you'll learn it right along with me. But I guess the other thing we could do is add another host, right? So let's go to settings, servers. See, it's really weird because they call it hosts up here, and they call them servers here where you go to add them. Not intuitive. This one is going to be XCP Dell 710 HP for high power. And this one, I have no idea. The IP is going to be, let's see here. That would be, look, I know I'm looking right at it. 5.9, okay. 5.9. And my username and my super secret password. And flip the switch on unauthorized certificates. Click on connect, and there we go. So now that we have Xen Orchestra installed, I actually want to go ahead and shut it down. So I'm going to come over here to the console, and I'm going to shut it down. See why I like a GUI? Okay, so it's powered off. So now what I want to do is go to General, Memory, Storage, Snapshots. And I want to take a snapshot, post XOCE install, init config. Okay, and I'm going to take a snapshot so I can go back to any of those point in time backups or to the base. So it's just a habit I've gotten into. Now I could also go ahead and export that. But before I do anything like that, I want to learn a little bit more about Xen Orchestra. I'd rather teach you how to do it. Well, I guess I could teach you both, but I certainly don't want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So, all right, so now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and start it. And there we go. So let's just go make sure I can log in. Enter our super secret password. And no, I'm not going to save it. So there we go. I came right into it. It worked just great. So let's go to that virtual machine, the Xen Orchestra virtual machine, and let's go over to the, oh, look, there's my snapshots. So that's working. I can do the console through here as well, just like I can with the XCP-NG Center. But even better, I can come over here to Advanced and I can do some things that need to be done here. One is I want this to power on every time this server gets powered back up. I also want to protect it from accidental deletion and from accidental shutdown. And I could also give it an affinity host. There's all kinds of other stuff I could change in here. I could even change the virtual machine limits, the RAM, etc., etc. But I ain't going to break it if it ain't broken. I mean, I'm not going to fix it if it ain't broken. So these are the settings I want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. So now it'll power on every time this server powers up and boots into XCP. It will boot into this VM. I've protected it from accidental deletion, so I can't come over here to, for example, XCP-NG, right-click, and you notice I can't delete it now. I can't come up to VM and choose delete. It's grayed out. So that gives you some protection there. So good thing. I like that. And then, of course, the last one is prevent from accidental shutdown, just in case you hit it or, you know, forced it to power, tried to force it to power off. It wouldn't let you do that. So, well, to my knowledge, so I'm assuming. Yeah, there you go. So back to the dashboard. So yeah, it appears our installation is up and running and not getting any statistics yet, but let's see if we go to one of the hosts. I'm sure we can get some stats here. Yeah, there you go. So that'll give you an idea of the power and memory usage, CPU usage on XCP on the machine running Xen Orchestra. So there you go, Xen Orchestra installed and the baseline configuration is set up. So yeah, you could get away without using Xen Orchestra. You could just use XCP-NG Center, but Xen Orchestra gives you a few more features you can utilize without having to go to the command line. So I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where XCP-NG Center goes away. There are still some things that I don't know how to do as well under Xen Orchestra as I do under XCP-NG Center. And it's a learning process. So we'll learn together as we move forward in this. So just want to give out a shout out to Captain Radar. He's been playing along with me with XCP. I've kind of converted him over, I guess, from VMware. He's a big VMware fan, as am I. But right tool for the right job, right? So I put the bug in his ear and got him to install XCP-NG in his home lab, and he's been enjoying the heck out of it. So kudos to him for trying. First, he didn't like it. The first day he was using XCP, he was, what is this hot pile of garbage? And now it's his new best friend. So I'm glad to see that at least one of you out there has taken a shine to XCP. I love it. I really like it compared to, the problem I have with VMware is the cost. So for home lab and for, people on a tighter budget, I think XCP could be a better way for you to go. And as we move forward in these series of XCP videos, you'll see how when I learn how to do new things, I'll teach them to you. And you notice there was some Linux command line shenanigans going on out here to where I had to actually go out to the command line and type in the old ancient codes from the old keyboards into the command line. But I'm actually enjoying it. It's kind of fun. So anyway, there you go. Well, I sincerely hope that you found this video entertaining and informative. Listen, the whole reason I make these videos is to share what I learned with you guys. So I want you to know how much I appreciate your patronage and you're coming back and you're giving me hints and tips along the way as well, because it is a learning process. So if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up down below. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click the little notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. We could use your contributions. PayPal, Patreon, and the YouTube join function. And after the first of the year, I think we're going to start using Subscribe Star as well, and maybe even Gab Pay. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. So thanks again for coming to see us. Please Don't forget to come back, and don't forget that we'll see all of you on the other side.